Rephrase the question. It was You really do like these political meetings. Rephrase the question. The question is this. The question is this, Jason. Tell me if you understand the question. Suppose capitalism is about to enter a crisis, and it really does enter a crisis next week, as it may well. And suppose also that we are living in a world where the forces of production are incredibly well developed, and if redistributed and well organized, could actually generate a regime of plenitude which could rid the whole globe of poverty. And so what is missing, given that scenario, what is missing from Marx's understanding, or Marx and Engels' understanding of the necessary prerequisites for making that transition to communism, Juliana?
Well, universal degradation, if there's still enough, even though it's under attack, there's still enough of a middle class, and a consumer class.
Very good. There isn't that universal degradation that Marx said was necessary. That's very good. That's one definite condition that's not present. And that had all sorts of corollaries and consequences. You must be Lauren then.
Yes. Forces of production is up.
Well, the forces of production are up. I'm going to make that assumption that we live in a world where the forces of production are really very well developed. There's something else. Degradation, yes, absolutely not there. But going along with that, yes.
The consciousness that developed from the revolutionary communist consciousness.
The communist consciousness develops in the process of revolution. Very good. Beautiful. BB. Yes. We don't see a lot of revolutionary movements around the world at this moment in history, and they don't just spring into existence momentarily, right, Felipe? Right. That's tough stuff. Yeah. So what's also missing is the idea of a revolutionary movement. We don't see that, and therefore the revolutionary consciousness is not there. So if there is a crisis next week, and capitalism disintegrates, what will happen? Chelsea.
Most likely.
Well, they don't call it fascism. In the Marxist lingo, they call it barbarism. Socialism.
I like that more.
You like socialism or barbarism? Yeah, so it could be very unpleasant. So we should be really concerned about what is happening. And so should our Congress people. Yeah. Okay, yes, indeed. All right, very good. All right, that's enough of communism. We'll get there when we get there. But keep on thinking about it now. That was my third point over here. Yes. All right. Jason, did I rephrase the question?
You did an excellent job.
Oh, thank you. I like you, I really do. Okay. I'm going to pay you to say these things more often. Right. Now look, we've had our first take on communism, our first approximation. But to really understand communism, you have to understand capitalism. You have to understand how Marx and Engels understood capitalism. There's no way you can really get a grasp on communism, really feel it, unless you understand capitalism. And that's what Marx and Engels spent most of their time studying, was capitalism. But to understand capitalism, as I said last time, you need to understand feudalism. We need to understand the class relations between lords and serfs. And to understand that, we have to understand the ancient mode of production. There is a relationship between citizens and slaves, slave owners and slaves. The first question on the board today is therefore, what is the difference between a serf and a slave? What is the difference between a serf and a slave? Yes. What is the difference between a serf and a slave? Anybody any idea? Yes, Jessica.
A serf has labor power, whereas a slave is just a commodity. They don't have they're sold as individuals. They're kind of commodities to their owner and they're close to whereas a serf has that labor power where they're getting paid for their labor.
I would give you 50% for that. That's pretty good. And the slave, I think you got right, but the serf is not quite right. The serf is not quite right. What's your name? Rachel.
The serf sells only part of his labor power.
The serf sells only part of his or her labor power. Page 205. Everybody got your box. 205. Yeah. So, where are you on that page? I think you're near, from the top of the page, about 20 lines down, I guess. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. 19 lines down, right? The slave. Is that where you are? Rachel? You said Rachel, right? Yes. The slave. Are everybody there? Greg, are you there? Very good. Why do you read it out then, Greg?
The slave did not sell his labor power to the slave owner any more than the ox sells his services to the peasant. The slave, together with his labor power, is sold once and for all to his owner.
Is sold once and for all to his owner. Jessica said the slave as an individual is sold to the slave owner. The slave owner owns the slave. Yep. Go on.
He is a commodity, which can pass from the hand of one owner to that of another. He is himself a commodity, but the labor power is not his commodity. The serf...
No. There's a full stop. Now, next sentence. Go on. You're doing beautifully. I just wanted a pause there. And I completely disoriented you. The serf.
The serf sells only a part of his labor power.
The serf sells only a part of his labor power. He does not, Jessica, receive a wage from the owner of the land. Rather, the owner of that land receives a tribute from him, Rachel. A tribute. I tribute. You are the Lord, and I am the serf, and I give you a tribute. What is my tribute to you?
Your labor power.
Yes. Well, you see, we've got to be very careful with the word labor power, and this guy is very sloppy with the word labor power in this. What happens in a relationship between a lord and a serf? This idea of tribute. How do you imagine it happening, Katie?
Well, I imagine that he gives the Lord the better part of the grain of the animals that he has raised on the land that belongs to him.
Very good, very good. So the serf gives up something to the Lord. And you said this time actual material things, animals, food. Yes, that gives up. And what do we call that thing that the serf gives up to the Lord?
The tribute?
The tribute, but it's also called something else. Well, no, it's not a commodity.
The rent?
The rent. Very good. Yes, the rent. So what the serf does, gives up something to the Lord that we call rent. Yes. But why does the serf give rent to the Lord? The rent could be in money, the rent could be in kind, in animals or food, and the rent could also be in labor. Very good. But why does the serf give that rent up to the Lord? What does the serf get in return, Sonny?
Isn't it shelter, home?
Shelter, home, yes. Who are you? Rosa. Okay, we got Rachel, Rosa, and Heather. Okay, that's my limit for today. Okay, Rosa.
I thought I read that sheep become apprentice to them.
Now we're in the cities. Now we're in the rural areas at the moment. We have lords and serfs. In the cities we have something different. We have masters and journeymen. Slightly different story. Let's stick in the rural areas. That's where the real feudalism is. Yep.
Don't the lords lend land to the serfs to like plant their food or products?
Brilliant! BB! Yes, exactly! Here we are. This is the serfs working on their strips of land. They're all in strips. What do they do on this land? They produce the crops, the means of their existence. This is where they have necessary labor. Necessary labor that is necessary for their subsistence. But they are only allowed to cultivate this land because they do what? What? Yeah. They pay rent. And let's imagine that they pay rent in labor. So they labor on the land of the Lord. You get it? Very good. Here it is. This is what? This is rent. I pay a proportion of the week, And the feudalism, we only work 6 days a week. 6 days a week. 1 day is rest and for religious activities. So, we say we work 2 days. 2 days on the Lord's land. That is rent. 2 days on the Lord's land. This is necessary labor. This is what labor? Hands up. This is necessary labor. This is what labor? Kristen. Lauren. There's a very different concept. Free labor. Well, this is not going to be very free. You got the realm of necessity, realm of freedom. But that's communism. This is feudalism. This is surplus. Kristen, why do we call this surplus labor?
They're not producing items for their own specific subsistence.
Right. Why on earth? They are the serfs are working on their own land, producing subsistence. Why on earth should they? What is above and beyond that is the surplus labor appropriated by here's the Lord in his castle, and he has a telescope. What is he observing? He's observing all these serfs working on the Lord's land. Okay? Surplus labor. This is surplus from the standpoint of the serfs. Serfs produce the necessary labor, and they have to produce something extra for the Lord. They call it surplus labor, rent, 2 days, and here we'll say 4 days. Very good. Question. Karen.
I have 2 questions. Does that mean a serf can just walk away from the Lord anytime he wants?
Very good question. Very good question. What's the answer? Can the serf walk away from the Lord anytime he or she wants? Hands up. No, I hear, but why not? Yes, Jessica.
The text says on page 205 of the product.
Yep.
The worker whose sole source of livelihood is the sale of his labor power cannot leave the whole class of purchasers that is the capital class without renouncing.
Jessica, what does it say? Read that again. It's talking about what there? Capitalism. Right? Is this capitalism? Is this capitalism? Is this capitalism?
Yes.
Jessica. Look at this beautiful picture. It's just made for you. Capitalism. Here we have feudalism. We have to be clear that these are different modes of production. Do not confuse them. They have to be separated because we will get an awful mess. Alright? So very good. So that is not an adequate text. Because that is about capitalism. That was a very interesting question, Karen. Can the serf? If that question were about capitalism, you had the perfect answer. But the question was about feudalism. So, can the serf walk away from the Lord?
If he wants to leave for good.
Come on, stop mumbling. Juliana.
No, because the serf doesn't own land. Like in our country, the slaves were finally quote unquote freed. What happened in the South is the sharecropping system, which is similar, like a renting system where you were allowed to work the land, work the system, but then you had to hand over to their own land. They couldn't have done much more, they didn't own any land as
Right. That's a very good analogy. There really wasn't feudalism in this society, but sharecropping was very similar to feudalism. You know, producing subsistence on your own land and giving up a share of it to the landowner. So the point is, absolutely as you said, if the serf walks away, the serf will stop. There are also other ways in which the serf is bound to the land and the Lord, but that's the basic material condition. There's no alternative. Well, of course, what happened historically is that they were actually pushed off the land, and where did they go according to Marx and Engels? They went to the cities. And how did they survive in the cities? They sold their labor power to capitalists, but we haven't got to that story yet. But anyway, that's a great question. That was one question you had.
So in other words, they're not like, they don't want to walk away, but in case they walk away, they're going to stop, but then they're free to do it.
In a sense, they're free to do it in a way that slaves are not free to do it. Okay. Yes, I think that's right. That's a good parallel. Comparison. Yes. Simeon.
I thought they were oftentimes attached to the land like via contract, and so it was actually a breach. You know, they're breaking their contract to then leave the land, and they could actually be brought back from the city. You know, when you live in the city for 2 years or whatever, then then you were.
Well, there were not real contracts in those days, but there was a sort of contractual type customary type relationship between the serf and the Lord. But underlying that is that material reason that Karen is pointing to, namely that they can't really leave the land because they depend upon the land, and only on that basis can they even sign the so-called contract. Yeah, Lauren.
So theoretically, they can leave, but they don't because they really don't have any
alternative.
Okay.
Right. That's right. Yes, Greg.
But there aren't serfs, since they are bound to the land, what happens when the Lord, who is in charge of the land, dies? And do the serfs go with, the Lord, or?
No, one Lord replaces another Lord. There's just a succession up here.
And they're
bound to this manorial system. I mean, basically, if you're a serf, you live in the same manner, the same sort of terrain owned by or occupied by the same lord. And so when one lord dies and the inheritors take over, the peasants, serfs stay in the same place.
So what's the difference about slavery? I mean, isn't that a slave is bound? Bound to the land, bound to this new master.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting is that bound is not quite the same word, same meaning in feudalism as it is in slavery. When you are owned is one thing. When you are committed to the land because that's your only means of survival, it's something else. Yeah. It's a matter of the difference between what is being sold here is labor. What is being sold? It's not sold. What is being given up? This tribute is labor. Whereas the slave gives up what? Everything. Him or herself. The whole bodily present stuff. The person is sold. Whereas here you're giving up the labor as opposed to the laborer. Alright? Good. Very good. Now you're really on top form today. Now in practice, this rent could take the form of, labor. It can also, in later feudalism, take the form of money. And sometimes it took the form of kind, so giving up crops. But in every case, it's called rent. Basically, the serf is able to cultivate this land for subsistence if and only if they give up rent, which can be labor, money, or kind. I use this form because it's the most simple and the prototype of feudalism.